Hi, I'm Robin, and this is my best friend Jim. We met in junior high. It was my first day at school. I was bored in math class, so I decided to disrupt it. When the teachers walked in, I pretended to be sick. I clutched my throat and bulged my eyes out. Robin, are you okay?
A rare disease. I forgot my pills at home. My hair's about to fall out.
Hair? Nonsense. At first he didn't believe me, but then Jim broke in. I know what he's talking about. My grandfather has the same disease. He needs a doctor, now! I pretended I was about to fall. Jim ran up to me and held me up. He kept playing along, and the teacher eventually believed us. He got scared and ran for a doctor. We couldn't stop laughing. Everyone eventually found out that I had been pretending, and Jim had been playing along. We were called to the principal's office and punished. We had to stay for extra classes after school for a whole week, and grew really close during that time. Nothing changed in high school. Everyone knew us as the biggest pranksters around. While everyone was studying, we messed around and had fun. All our classmates loved it. Well, almost all of them. See that girl? That's Violetta. That nerd was a terrible bore. She kept trying to ruin our fun and set us on the right path. Of course, she never succeeded. Jim and I became famous, not only at school, but in our whole neighborhood. One day, we decided to ride my father's bike after school and took it from the garage without permission. We'll be in trouble if he finds out about this. When has that ever stopped us? At first, we practiced in the middle of nowhere, and then I decided to drive around the city. I always thought rules were beneath me, so I did not put on a helmet and drove at high speed. Everything was going fine until a girl appeared on the road. I immediately swerved and braked hard. Damn it! The girl looked terrified and stared at me in horror. Are you okay? She nodded slowly. I made sure that she was fine and drove on. Jim and I had a great time and sneakily returned the bike to the garage. However, in a couple of days, the truth came out. My dad got a speeding ticket. I had never heard him yell so loudly before.
How irresponsible are you? I'm tired of your stupid antics. No pocket money for 2 weeks.
Like that was gonna scare me. I was used to getting in trouble, so it didn't bother me. Soon, Jim and I got another idea. We decided to prank our computer science teacher. We came to the classroom early and installed a virus on his computer. As we were leaving, we ran into a girl. I'd never seen her before. She looked cool. Just look at her outfit. It turned out that she had just been transferred to our school. Her name was Murda. We were told to work on some boring tables when the class began. At some point, all the computers froze and a hilarious meme appeared on the screens.
What is this?
The teacher tried to remove it but failed. Jim and I high-fived each other, barely holding in laughter. At that moment, my eyes met Murda's. She must have realized it was our doing. I wondered if she would rat us out. Violetta suddenly stood up and gave us an annoyed look. They did this, I'm sure of it. Judging by the teacher's face, he agreed. He was about to say something when Murda broke in. They had nothing to do with this. They were showing me around school before classes and didn't come here. We were together the whole time. That surprised me. It seemed Murda was a cool girl. At least that was what I thought then. One day, she told our class that our last lesson had been canceled. Everyone went home, even Violetta. However, the next day, it turned out that Murda had lied. The principal was furious.
You were asked to tell them the teacher was going to be late.
Murda tried to look innocent. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Everyone was grateful to her, except Violetta, of course. That must have been the first time she skipped a class. After that incident, Murda tried to befriend us and started suggesting all sorts of pranks. She was great, but a bit annoying. Eventually, we let her join us. While Murda was on the lookout, Jim and I dressed up the skeleton model in the biology classroom. Then, we quickly left, rubbing our hands with glee. However, when everyone came to class, the skeleton looked like it usually did, and was standing in its usual place. Then, I realized that Violetta was looking at me. Damn it! She'd probably noticed us and ruined everything. Weirdly enough, she didn't tell anything to the teacher. Since that day, we had a rough patch. Our pranks had never failed so often before. It seemed like Violetta was constantly watching us and always staying one step ahead of us. It was infuriating. But one day, something truly bad happened. For some reason, Jim looked sad when he came to school. You okay? My parents bought a house on the other side of town. We're moving, and they're transferring me to another school. What? I was shocked. We couldn't let that happen. We should do something. We tried to think of ways to make Jim stay at our school. I called his parents, pretending to be the principal.
Mrs. Brown, I heard rumors that you were going to transfer your son to another school. I would strongly advise against it. He has an excellent academic record in computer science. We want him to participate in the city contest.
He will still be able to participate after we transfer him.
That didn't work. but we weren't giving up. Jim joined a graffiti club that only existed in our school. Then he told his parents that he really wanted to keep drawing, but that didn't work either. You can come to the club after school. We even tried to steal the transfer request, but it was useless. Jim's parents were adamant. My friend was miserable. That's enough, Robin. I'm transferring and there's nothing we can do about it. Unfortunately, he was right. I really missed him at school. Of course, we didn't stop hanging out together or coming up with ideas for pranks. We still met after school, hung out outside, pulled pranks in stores, and had fun. Murda often joined us. She wouldn't leave us alone, really. Soon enough, Jim started missing parties. Sorry, I'm busy. I can't make it tonight. Some other time, okay? It started to bother me. When we finally met, I asked him what was so important that he was busy all the time. I'm busy at school and have almost no free time. My parents also make me help out at home. It's a disaster. I didn't like it. And then I got a brilliant idea. Of course, all I had to do was transfer to Jim's school. That evening, I decided to talk to my parents. I want to transfer to another school. They immediately realized why.
To hang out with that friend of yours again? Robin, quit messing around.
It's time for you to grow up. You are graduating soon. What are you going to do after that? I hated such lectures. They made me mad, and I locked myself in my room.
It's time for you to grow up.
Jim and I will never change. Since my parents refused to help me, I would simply try my hardest to get expelled. You don't know what I'm capable of yet. The next day at school was crazy. I outdid myself. I started a food fight in the dining room and spilled soup over our chemistry teacher. Then I exploded several crackers with colored powder in a hallway at recess. As a result, the floor, walls, and students were bright and colorful. That was when Violetta appeared. Your childish antics are ridiculous. Of course, I didn't listen to her and kept having fun. I burst into a classroom in a scary mask, laughing like a villain. The girls screamed in horror. The teacher clutched her heart. I was sent to the principal's office. Soon, my parents came as well.
Robin's behavior is unacceptable. This is the last warning. One more prank, and I'll kick him out of school. We're sorry, it won't happen again.
My parents and I had a fight again. My dad was furious. That was exactly what I wanted. It was time for my next prank. I found an old coat in the closet and had to spend the whole evening working on it. The next day, I showed up at school looking like a homeless person. I was wearing a ragged, dirty coat and stank. I'd poured juice from canned fish and a bottle of cheap perfume all over myself. The result exceeded all expectations. Everyone shielded away from me and held their noses. I was walking down the hallway when I bumped into Violetta. Just imagine, she fainted from shock. It was a scandal. Everyone thought I was a real madman.
You've gone too far this time.
I got expelled and was overjoyed. Hooray, my plan worked! When I came home, my parents already knew about everything. The principal had called them. They were, to put it mildly, not thrilled.
You are a disgrace to our family. I am ashamed to have such a son.
Robin, how could you? When are you going to stop getting into trouble? I told you I wanted to be transferred to another school. It's all your fault. We had a terrible fight. I got angry, grabbed my backpack, and ran away from home. I decided to stay with Jim for a while and went to his place. When I rang the doorbell, his mother opened the door. Jim isn't here. He is in the park with his friends. What? What friends? But Jim said that he was very busy at school and at home, and that he didn't have any time to hang out with me. Nonsense. He goes to an ordinary school and he has no chores. I was so confused. Had Jim lied to me? Why would he do that? I went to the park to get to the bottom of it and immediately saw Jim. He was sitting next to his new friends and looked happy. They were discussing something and laughing. Hey Jim, mind explaining this? He hesitated, but then got up and took me aside. Listen, I didn't know how to tell you about it, but I've cleaned up my act and want to go to university. My new friends are a good influence. Are you trying to say I was a bad influence? I didn't say that. We both went too far. However, I decided to stop. You should consider changing too. I couldn't believe my ears. He sounded almost exactly like my parents. Do you want to meet my friends? Screw you! He could hang out with losers if he wanted to, but I wasn't about to join them. I pushed him away and left. I felt terrible. How could he do that? I wandered through the city and thought about his betrayal. I got kicked out of school, ran away from home, and now what? Should I find like-minded people? We could hang out and live together. I suddenly thought about Myrtle. She was a troublemaker and wanted to spend time with me. I called her and told her about my plan. I thought she would be happy, but Myrtle didn't seem very enthusiastic.
I'm sorry, but this is too much for me. My parents won't let me go. It sounds like a terrible idea.
At that time, I was passing by a building. A girl was coming out of it, and we accidentally bumped into each other. I was about to keep walking, but then I heard that girl's voice. She was also talking on the phone, and I could hear her. Myrtle? She froze with her mouth open. I was also silently examining her. Where were her daring haircut, piercings, and tattoos? Wait a minute. It was her I'd almost run over. I looked at the building and saw the sign on it. It was an acting school. What is this? Myrtle looked miserable. I've liked you for a long time. After we ran into each other on the street, I decided it was time to act. I used my acting skills, changed my look, and transferred to your school. I really wanted you to like me. That's why I wore a wig and temporary tattoos and helped you with the pranks. Or rather, tried to help. To be honest, I fixed everything you did. So it had been Murda and not Violetta. I was stunned. Jim wasn't the only one who had been lying to me that whole time. Robin, screw you! I thought you were like me, but you were just pretending. It was late evening. I was sitting on a bench. It was raining. I was cold, didn't know where to go. A silhouette suddenly appeared nearby. It kept getting closer, and soon I saw Violetta. What are you doing here? Why do you care? Keep walking. Why are you always so rude? I can see you're in trouble. Why couldn't she leave me alone? I have nowhere to go. I'm tired and hungry. Let's go to my place then. I hesitated, but didn't have any better ideas, so I had to agree. Violetta introduced me to her parents. We had dinner together, and she brought me to her room. I immediately noticed an unfinished model of a house on her table. What's that? Violetta looked embarrassed. I like designing things. I want to become an architect. Do you want to look at my drawings? That was interesting. I never would have thought that nerd had such creative hobbies. We spent the evening looking at her drawings and magazines. At some point, I realized that I was enjoying myself. I couldn't sleep that night. Everyone except me had hobbies and plans. Maybe Jim was right. What if I was just a fool that couldn't grow up? Mom and Dad came to pick me up in the morning. Violetta's parents had called them. My dad didn't yell and just frowned at me. I felt ashamed of myself for the first time in my life. I'm sorry, I really did go too far. I promise I'll change. We made up. My parents talked to the principal again, and I went back to school. Violetta offered to help me with my studies and tutored me after school. One day, I asked her to teach me to build models. She beamed at me. Of course! You can borrow some of my books. Life soon got better. I became seriously interested in design, trying to get better marks and applied to a good university. One day, I was leaving school when I saw Jim. He came up to me and looked at me guiltily. I wanted to apologize. Forget it, I'm not angry anymore. You were right. Partly thanks to you, I finally grew up. We started hanging out together again. Jim even introduced me to his friends. They turned out to be great. It might be hard to believe, but I'm dating Murda now. How did that happen? She stopped being obsessed with me and focused on herself. She was great at acting and became much more confident. I reconnected with her and have no regrets. That's it. I hope my story will help someone. Do you know what you're gonna do in the future? Or are you afraid of growing up? Tell us in the comments down below.